Okay, hello. Um, Happy Wednesday, and thanks all for joining us for our Disease Prevention and Reversal Summit, the webinar series rather, the first of the year. So first thing, as far as the summit from January, the videos are available. Jade is awesome. She goes through and edits all of them, so you could just watch certain videos. So please feel free to utilize them. They're all on our site, theprevdoc.com. So that's PREV for preventative, DOC for doctor.com. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Jay. You all, I think everyone on here knows Jay very well and knows all how awesome she is, actually bringing health to the day-to-day and how do we actually do the how-to improve our health. So Jay, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Cox. Welcome everyone. Those of you who know me know I'm in a slightly different spot today. So forgive me for the weird angle, but let's go ahead and get started. We like to keep our time right to the hour because we are very mindful that everyone is busy. So today I want to welcome you to our heart disease webinar called Matters of the Heart. Your first sign could be your last. Now that was dire intentional. I swear not the whole thing's not going to be all doom and gloom. I'm going to give you some practical, easy to apply strategies for protecting your heart. But it's really, really important that we understand the seriousness of the situation first. So let's get into that. So as Dr. Cox said, my name is Jay Ziebart. I'm a nutritionist. My focus is lifestyle medicine. Nutrition is my jam, but there's lots of aspects of lifestyle medicine. We'll go over that briefly, very briefly in this presentation, but I do want to first talk about the first signs that we might be in trouble. Now, the scariest thing is sometimes in a significant number of cases, the first sign of heart disease is unfortunately death. We can't do anything about it at that point, right? So we've all had family members that suddenly passed away. I mean, this disease is way too prevalent in our society for us not to each know someone personally that has had a heart attack. That's how many people, 1 in 4 Americans have heart disease. So what are we doing here? What are we trying to do? We're trying to implement prevention before things get really serious. Now, some of us are very, very lucky. Some of us have some sort of sign and we're able to do something about it. Now, part of the problem is not everyone knows what to do. There's some conflicting information out there, but the most important thing that you can do for yourself is really to arm yourself with the hard science that goes along with protecting ourselves by nourishing our bodies really well as all of the other ways we can protect ourselves. So what do I mean by the lucky ones? These photos here are of my husband and I. So that top one is about 10, 12 years ago, and this bottom one is more recent. What I'm saying here is that both of us had very high blood pressure. My husband was on 2 medications. My doctor told me my blood pressure was at stroke level. And so those are really gifts. They are gifts to us. Here is your chance to do something about this. Now, we could have had a much more serious wake-up call. We could have had no warning at all. And so I really want to impress upon you that if you've had any sort of preliminary diagnosis, or if you've gotten your numbers back and you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, or anything else related to the blood, consider it a gift and consider it your opportunity to take control and have a chance to really do something to impact the rest of your life. This is not just about surviving the rest of our lives. It's about really thriving and enjoying the rest of our lives. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for me and everyone I care about too. Okay, here comes the dire stuff again. It's our #1 killer by a lot, by a big margin, heart disease. And the only pattern of eating that has been shown in studies to reverse it is the plant-based diet. Now, does that mean you have to be perfectly plant-based, 100% plant-based? No, but it does mean, and we have seen over and over and over again in studies, that the closer you get to plant-based, whole food plant-based, not this, plant-based products situation, whole food plant-based, the closer you get, the fewer of these lifestyle diseases that you're likely to suffer with, the better you're going to be able to manage symptoms if you have them, and sometimes we can even reverse out of them. The changes can be quite rapid depending on your situation. So take heart that, you can see results within a few weeks depending on what you're trying to change and how quickly you're making those changes. All right, more not so fun facts. 1 US citizen dies every 36 seconds from CVD. 2 in 10 deaths from coronary artery disease are younger than 65 years old. We're going to be talking about age in a little bit because people tend to think of heart disease as an older person's disease. Not so. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. Every year, about 805,000 of us have a heart attack. I haven't had a heart attack, but I can tell you I don't want one. In 2020, over 690,000 Americans died of heart disease. Now, I want to show you this. This is not to reduce the seriousness of COVID. COVID is very serious. We need to take it seriously. But I do want to point something out. This is all about empowering you. I want you to realize how much agency you have over your own health. We had a lot of people pass away from COVID. We've had a lot of sickness related to COVID. Now, when it comes to heart disease, we've had a significantly larger number of people die from that. And the best thing and the worst thing about it is that it's almost entirely preventable. We do our best to protect ourselves against everything, but heart disease, this thing that looms over us, that is taking our family members, that is taking the people that we care about, that is taking our quality of life, we can do something about this. A lot. We can do a lot. And so I want to show you what some of those things are. Here, I'm just trying to impress upon you your power and the seriousness of the situation. Okay, I'm going to share something with you a little bit later. So I want you to remember this little detail here. This is some facts about which populations of people are most impacted. So this little detail here says non-Hispanic Black persons are more than twice as likely to die of heart disease. Okay, I want you to remember that fact. Remember it. Because, a lot of us will say, well, heart disease runs in my family, and that is significant, but it's more significant in some ways than others. And I will explain. I want you to remember this little detail, and I will explain. Okay, risky business. So what are we doing to increase our risk of, having heart disease, of suffering from the things that come with heart disease? Smoking. I think a lot of us really know this by now, but it's worth mentioning because not everyone does. Too much alcohol. So we really have discovered that there really is no safe level of alcohol. It's a cancer promoter, and it's just really not good for us. It does all sorts of things to our bodies that we don't want. So some people might say, well, red wine's good for us, right? Grapes are good for us. Red wine is not. So too much alcohol. If you do drink, keep it down to a minimum. And if you don't drink, don't start. Hypertension, hyperlipidemia, and diabetes. So these are the things I mentioned earlier. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, and type 2 diabetes. Overweight, carrying excess weight on our bodies, that can increase our risk of heart-related issues. And not exercising. So, people kind of think of exercise as, well, that's a weight loss tool, but that's not all it does. It does so many beautiful things. It protects our brain. It keeps our heart strong and our lungs strong. It keeps the fluid in our body moving. It keeps our tissues nice and perky. We want to get in regular exercise. It protects pretty much every part of our body. And you'll notice I have a big red box around this last one, and that is unhealthy diet. So I'm going to call out a few things. One of the things I always say is there's always more you can do, but let's focus on the most important things. Let's prioritize the kinds of things that we can change so that we're not overwhelmed. So we're going to talk about unhealthy fats, sodium. We want to keep that sodium low, and really unhealthy diet is foods that are low in fiber, highly processed foods. Because if it comes out of a manufacturer, then it is something that used to be food maybe. So really we want to fill our bodies with real food, whole plant-based foods as much as we can. So I want to say, if at any point you have a question or a comment, feel free to pop that in the Q&A or chat, and we'll definitely get to it after. Okay, so this was that timing thing I was sharing with you earlier. So when do we need to start worrying about this? You might be very surprised. So people think, and I've had people say to me, well, I won't worry about my kids. I'll let them do what they want, and they can decide later if they want to adopt a plant-based diet. That might not be the greatest idea. First of all, you're establishing bad habits early, and we want to establish good habits with our littles earlier so that it's not a struggle for them once they grow up. But also, they are also affected. And here are just a couple of many studies that have been done. So in 1953, and I pulled this one out intentionally because a lot of people say, well, it's our modern manufacturing of food that's the problem. And it is certainly a problem. You've seen those like Arnold Schwarzenegger chickens, right? These chickens that are like many, many times what they should be, like they can't even stand on their own legs because they are so mutated. So that is definitely part of it. But in the 1950s, they did this study on soldiers that were killed in the Korean War. The average age was 22 years old, just a baby. And 70% had evidence of atherosclerosis, that's plaque in the arteries. 70% of 22 years on average, 22-year-olds. When is the best time to start thinking about your health and start applying these lifestyle medicine practices? Yesterday. When's the second best time? Right now. All right, and this one, I can't do this one without my throat closing and my heart aching, but it's important to realize because we have to protect our littles, right? We need to protect them. In 1989, this is just one of the studies. Autopsies were done of American children in fatal car accidents. So in the range of ages 10 to 14, again, ouch, 50%, half, had evidence of early atherosclerosis. Those little tiny bodies with plaque in their arteries already, little streaks. We need to do better. We can't do better until we know better. Now that you know, let me show you what you can do. So we're definitely going to get to that part. I promise the doom and gloom is almost over. Okay, some really important things to know about the signs and symptoms of a heart attack. I call this one out because some people don't realize some of the symptoms. And so somebody, maybe a female relative, has low back pain, nausea, and is sweating like crazy. Is your first indication or your first thought going to be, are they having a heart attack? Maybe not, but those are some of the symptoms. And so let me just go through these really, really quickly. So signs and symptoms vary person to person, very often different between men and women. Chest pain, pressure, feeling like you have an elephant sitting on your chest, very common. It doesn't have to be pain though, it can be discomfort. Everyone senses pain differently as well. So pain or discomfort in the jaw, in the neck, or in the back, upper or lower. Weakness, lightheadedness, nausea, or cold sweat, as I mentioned. Pain, discomfort in the arms and shoulders. There's something called referred pain. And when we have organ pain, for example, I used to get gallbladder attacks way back. I would actually feel it in my shoulders and in my low back. And so it's called referred pain. It shows up somewhere else in the body. So arms and the shoulders, that can be an indication. And shortness of breath. If you're having trouble catching your breath, definitely any of these symptoms, you're going to want to get checked out. Really, there's really no need to sit with these and try and decide if it's potentially like, let's wait and see. No, let's not. It's not worth the risk. We can't live without our heart, so let's protect it. All right, I told you I was going to briefly go over lifestyle medicine. So nutrition is my jam, but we always talk about these other components as well. Healthful eating, physical activity, stress management. None of this is a surprise to you, right? Avoiding risky substances. That's really mostly about, cigarette smoking, et cetera, but I would also include food-like substances, making sure to get good quality sleep and enough, not too much, and maintaining those good social connections. That is an important part of our health, especially now as we're in this sort of disjointed, disconnected phase in the world. So making sure to stay connected in any way that you can. So how can we prepare our meals in a healthier way? That's kind of step one. Of course, deep frying, it's not good. Anytime we're including oil in the cooking, we want to try and think of a different way to do that. Now, are there some oils that are healthier? Absolutely, but all oil is highly processed. What do I mean by that? If really awesome things about the food have been removed, it's highly processed. So in like the processing of olive oil or avocado oil, which are some of the healthier oils, they have removed almost all of the best micronutrients and all of the fiber. And all you're left with is pure fat. Now, is that fat healthier than lard or butter? Absolutely. Is it healthy, though, is the question. So whenever somebody says, well, that's healthy food, you should always ask the question, as compared to what? So there are a lot of studies on olive oil and how beneficial it is, as compared to what? That's the question we need to ask. So here we have, this is actually my aunt, and we are barbecuing. So I just wanted to show you some real pictures of real life food. You can tell we're being rained on here. These are portobello Hawaiian style burgers with corn on the cob. And this is just like good comfort food, absolutely gloriously delicious. If it's not easy, if it's not fun, if it's not delicious, it's not sustainable. So that is a piece of the puzzle. Make it fun, make it delicious. There are a million plant-based chef wizards out there. Lots of amazing recipes. I have a few if you need some. So these are my top 3 tips. Remember, there are a lot of things we can do, but these I want to prioritize. Boost your fiber. Where is fiber found? In plant-based foods. The foods that grow from the ground, those foods contain fiber as long as it hasn't been removed. Any other foods do not contain fiber. Meat from an animal does not contain fiber at all, no fiber. So the only foods that contain fiber are the ones that grow from the ground. And we want to keep them as close to the way they grew as possible. So I just want to point out a few things. This is real food here, and it's delicious looking food, am I wrong? Top right, we have a grilled tempeh panini sandwich. Got some avocado and some tomatoes and whole grain bread, yum. Got a chili here. You can actually see the beans in it. You can see the vegetables, see the avocado slices, right? That's real food. In the middle is some roasted cauliflower. Sorry, it's making me drool a little bit. Really good stuff here. Roasted cauliflower. Cauliflower is a cruciferous vegetable. Extra special benefits. I'll be talking about that in a minute. On the right here, we have this sort of mixture of all sorts of vegetables, some noodles, some tempeh, and some greens. These are beautiful, delicious foods that love you back. And those are the kinds of foods we want to focus on, all filled with fiber. So we want to make sure we're increasing our greens, these dark leafy greens, especially the cruciferous ones. I'll tell you about that in a second. And we want to upgrade our protein. What do I mean by that? Plant-based proteins are so much gentler on our bodies, so much gentler. And anytime our food is attached to its original fiber, our body can regulate that better. So our body absorbs what it needs appropriately. Whereas if it's devoid of its fiber, let's say orange juice instead of oranges, it kind of rapidly absorbs. It's too fast, it's too much. And a glass of juice is like 5 to 9 oranges, whereas you eat 1 orange and it feels about the same. And you have removed the fiber in the juice. So it rapidly absorbs, so spike in blood sugar. That's not the way that our body is designed to digest things. So eat things with their fiber attached, included as part of it, and it will absorb appropriately and be digested in the appropriate spot along our very, very, very long digestive tract. So how can fiber help? So I've given you 3 top tips, and I'm going to show you why, or give you a brief description as to why. So how can fiber help us? I said boost your fiber, but why? So first of all, Americans tend to get a fraction of the amount of fiber that's minimally recommended by the USDA, and the USDA is not even cutting it. So the USDA recommends somewhere between 28 and 35, depending on how old you are and your gender, et cetera, et cetera. Lifestyle medicine advocates for healthy microbiome. If you haven't heard about that, definitely look into it. It's very cool science. Those advocates are recommending 50 to 100. Now don't get scared. I get 50 standing on my head. Okay, I can't really stand on my head, but really, really easy to get in 50 if you're eating plant-powered meals. So how does fiber help us? It can reduce common digestive issues. Most of us, like about 2/3 of us, complain of digestive issues. So this is very, very common. I'm talking diarrhea, constipation. Those are the 2 most common. There are lots of other variations, combinations of those 2, and other things that we can get that can be going on that can be helped by eating more fiber. Our digestion is designed to be fiber fueled, and so if that's absent, things aren't working properly. So reduce risk of heart disease. That's what we're talking about today. Huge. Get in those fiber-filled foods. Fruit, vegetables, whole grains. Do not be afraid of those whole grains as long as they're whole. Beans, legumes, peas, lentils, all of those glorious things are glorious sources of protein and high fiber. And don't forget some nuts and seeds for those beneficial fats. So reduced incidence of type 2 diabetes. Increasing your insulin sensitivity, which will help to heal your issues with absorbing those sugars appropriately, which is what diabetes is mostly about. Reduce risk of cancers, especially things like colorectal cancer. Huge, fiber is huge in that one. Reduced blood pressure, reduced cholesterol, reduced weight. You know, if you see in studies, Dr. Cox has a favorite one that she shares all the time. You can see literally the stepwise approach, meat eater, vegetarian, you know, like it just boom, 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 boom. The closer you get to plant-powered eating, the lower these risks are. Improve nutrient absorption. Remember what I was saying about that fiber helping us to digest our food in the appropriate spot along our very long digestive tract. Also, it feeds our good gut microbes. If you haven't heard about this topic, we have a recording of it on prepdoc.com. I did a short presentation for the summit, and there's lots of really good information out there. It is a very, very cool emerging science. So much of our health is centered around our microbiome, so definitely look into that. Okay, so we've talked about why fiber, why greens. So nutrient for or calorie for calorie, greens are our most nutritious food that we can consume. They are high, potent, nutritious foods. So really, really fantastic. There are so many things about greens that are impacting our well-being. We're talking about heart disease today, so I'm going to focus on a few, but trust me, there are many, many others. Get in those greens, especially the cruciferous ones. Which ones are the cruciferous ones? If they're part of the cabbage family. So got a little beautiful picture of a cabbage here, but kale, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, watercress, arugula, also known as rocket lettuce, broccoli, right? Broccoli sprouts are one of the best things that you can eat, like hands down. Broccoli sprouts are off the charts good for you. So get in those green leafies. Now, broccoli isn't technically a leafy, but it's in this category because it's so fantastic. So we want at least 3 servings. If you have any history of heart disease or anything related to these, these related diagnoses I was talking about, try to get 6. So lots and lots of greens, big salad, maybe 2. So what do greens do for us? They keep that long digestive tract healthy. They keep those junctures tight so that we don't get that leaky gut situation going on. They keep that tissues healthy, and they feed those microbes, those beneficial microbes that are helping us to digest our food. So as far as digestion goes and that healthy microbiota, these greens are huge. Said very, very nutrient powered low calorie. So really a lovely way to fill up and get amazing nourishment without overdoing it on the calories. So let's talk about some specific blood vessel stuff. So the greens and some other kinds of vegetables as well increase certain chemicals in our bloodstream that relax our vascular muscles. And so, sometimes our arteries blood vessels can get a little stiff, but we need them to stretch appropriately. So if you're exerting yourself and want them to stretch a little bit, open up so we get some good blood flow, right? Good oxygen transfer. So those muscles need to be pliable. So that can help with that. Increasing blood flow, keeping that blood nice and moving and moving. We don't want that to get sludgy. And it can inhibit adhesion to the walls, which, we're talking about plaques snagging onto the inside of our blood vessels. So there are lots of things that can get sticky and stuck to the insides. Eating these greens can help to prevent that from happening, keep things flowing, get those things out. The last one is upgrading your protein. So increase your fiber, eat your greens, and choose the best kind of protein. What is the best kind of protein? The kind that comes from plants. Now, some people will hear plant-based diet and they'll say, where to get your protein? It's a very common question, less so now as people are starting to really educate themselves about this way of eating and learning more and more and more. But I want you to take home this very important fact. All plants contain protein. All plants contain protein. And more really to the point, that's where protein comes from. So some people would eat cows, and they're these enormous animals with big bones, just huge, right? What do they eat? Plants, exclusively. So protein is initially created and eaten in plants. So skip the middle animal, go directly to the plant. I'm not suggesting you eat grass. I'm suggesting you eat human appropriate plants, but all of them contain protein as well. And now this is a myth that's been thoroughly debunked, and I think most of people realize this now, but just in case there's somebody out there that hasn't heard this, all plants contain all 9 essential amino acids. So food combining is not necessary. You don't need to eat certain things together at the same time. We do need to eat a variety of plants, but that's because we need lots of different nutrients, and each plant will have different levels of those 9 essential amino acids. So to get in everything that we need, we do need to eat a variety of plants, but there are many, many reasons why we need to do that. Protein. Americans get way too much. We tend to be very obsessed with protein in this country, and most Americans are getting 2 to 3 times as much as they should, and that is not a good thing. Too much protein is not good for you. It's not. It's hard on your kidneys, it's hard on your heart, it's hard on your brain, it is hard on everything. Too much protein is not good for you. We want to get the right amount of foods. Just because some is good doesn't mean more is better, right? So when we eat our protein in the form of plants, because of that fiber again, our bodies regulate that better. Our bodies have a chance to say, I'm going to take that much, and some of that excess is going to leave with the fiber. So fiber is has this way of allowing our bodies to take what they need, and some of those excesses will leave the other way. So remember, all of our plant-based foods contain protein. Protein is not something that you need to focus on. There are certain situations where we're going to want to think about it, but that is a person-to-person kind of situation. Mostly, we just want to eat a lovely variety of plants. Last thing, all plants contain 0 cholesterol. We don't need to eat any cholesterol. Our bodies make it. We're animals. We make cholesterol in our bodies. It has a use, but we don't need to eat any of it. And so plants have 0 cholesterol. Okay, so I want to quickly talk about patterns of eating. Remember that slide I showed you with the studies of who is more likely to get heart disease? Okay, so I love patterns, and patterns of eating are really the best way for us to see what styles of eating produce what kind of lifestyle in people. And we do these all over the world, so all sorts of different kinds of diets, all different kinds of flavors, some spicy, some more mild, different kinds of plants that we're eating, all sorts of different things going on. But if you've heard of the blue zones, right, these 5 places in the world where people lived really well and long. So, living long is fine as long as you're living well too, right? We want to live long and enjoy our lives, right? That's a critical piece. Quality of life while we live longer is important too. So living long and living well, 5 blue zones all over the world. Very, very different cultures. But what was common among them was staying connected with their communities, eating beans, really plant-powered diets is what was the way that they were doing things. There are lots of other things there too worth investigating, but those 2 were the top ones. So there are the Adventist studies. So there's a community in the blue zones that was Loma Linda that was an Adventist community. Lots of different other kinds of communities as well in those blue zones, but one of them was an Adventist community. So they have, along with their faith, a way of eating. And these Adventist studies are the ones where I was talking about. Dr. Cox has those stepwise graphs. The closer we get to plant-powered eating, the less of these things that we're suffering with that are lifestyle related. Okay. The China study is a really cool one too. These isolated locations all over China, right? Huge geographically, and lots of different, very cut off, have their own food sources and their own culture and their own way of doing things. That was a really cool way to see, okay, which patterns produce which kinds of diseases. And you're not going to be shocked to hear that there is a very common thread in all of these. So as far as that little graph that I showed you earlier, so it was saying that people of color, non-Hispanic Black people, twice as likely to die, right? But I wanted to call out this Kenya study. So this was done a while ago, but it was over 2 years, 1,800 patients. Do you know how many of them had heart disease? 1,800 patients over 2 years. How many of them had high blood pressure? None. 0. So yes, lifestyle matters. Yes, family history matters. When I say lifestyle there, I meant tradition and things like that. All of that stuff matters in terms of the results of your health. What some people fail to sort of realize is that, you know what else is passed down through families besides genes? Recipes, habits, right? So we want to think about what we are doing and see if there are changes we can make, because we have to live in this body regardless. It is how it is. Our genes are what they are. Cool thing is, though, is that we can turn on and off some of those genes. Epigenetics, very, very cool. We can turn off and on some of those genes based on the decisions that we make. So depending on what you're eating, depending on the way that you're living, you can turn off some of those harmful genes, turn on some of the protective ones. What you do matters. It matters a lot. So this other column here, I just want to talk about for just a second, and these are patterns that are not so great. So the westernization of diets, and one of the most telling patterns that we see are people that move here from other countries. So they move here from other countries, and in those countries, they don't have the diseases that we have. And then within a generation or 2 of living here, they do. So that's not about what's passed down through families. Those are about the environment that you're living in, the food that you have available to you, the culture, the recipes, the habits. Secrets of the World's Longest Lived. This is all about the blue zones. So I highly recommend you check this out because it's really, really cool. And it does show you this all around sort of approach to holistic wellness. Holistic just means the whole, right? We want to make sure, remember, we're eating well, exercising, keeping our stress low, staying away from risky substances, getting lots of sleep, and maintaining those good social connections. It's all important. But number one, the highest risk factor is what we put in here. So I have laid on the fear a little bit today, and that was intentional. But what's most important is that we get motivated to change, we get motivated to move forward, but then we work toward living better, living peaceful, joyful, happy, healthy, vibrant lives. I love this quote from Dr. Dean Ornish, the creator of the cardiac rehab program that is reimbursed by Medicare. Not fear of dying, but joy of living. So you've got a little fear, that'll kick us in the backside just a little bit to get us moving, but then we want to work and move toward joy and happiness and vitality and peace with our bodies. So what happens if you've already had an event, or you've already had, heart attack or stroke, or you already have high cholesterol, you already have high blood pressure? What happens if you already have type 2 diabetes? You still have the power. If you are up and about, you can feed yourself, you can make decisions for yourself, you have power, you have agency over your health. So what can we do when we have already had an incident? Can we heal? There are a couple of really cool studies out there that show kind of what felt like hopeless cases, or actually were considered hopeless cases, where they actually reversed out of some of their disease. So you want to be able to walk a distance without breathing difficulty. You want to be able to share in the activities of your family with enough energy, with enough joy, without being in so much pain, without being afraid. There are things you can do about that. As I was mentioning, Dr. Ornish has his cardiac rehab program. Cardiac rehab is what people go to after they've had a heart attack. And so what we want to do is make sure that we get right on it. Get right on it, because just because you've had one incident doesn't mean you're not going to have another. Actually, it's much more likely that you will. And those associated diagnoses that I talked about, they are all best friends, unfortunately. So if you've got one, it's likely going to lead to another of those, unless we nip that in the bud, unless we really take control of our health. You have a lot more power than you've been led to believe, a lot more. A question here, is it a risk to eat too many nuts or other high-fat natural items, avocado, coconut, etc.? Very good question. So there are some higher fat foods that we want to be cautious of depending on what we have going on underneath. Now, plant-based fats, the whole versions, right? We're not talking oils, we're talking like whole foods with their fiber intact, are really quite good for us. But if they're high in saturated fat and we've already had some sort of incident, we have high insulin resistance, we have cardiovascular issues, we don't want to keep those to a minimum. There's some good fats that we absolutely want to get in, but we also kind of want to watch that. So that's why I'm constantly saying that your path to your best health has got to be personalized. Each person needs their own plan, their own set of goals, and their own strategies. And so play to your strengths, understand or learn or find somebody who knows which things to choose over which things to prioritize for your health. So coconut oil is not good for you, period, at all, not at all. It's extremely high in saturated fat. It's worse than it's higher in saturated fat than some other non-plant products. So we really want to stay away from those oils, but especially those ones that are high in saturated fat. Nuts are healthful. We definitely want to be getting in a little bit an ounce, maybe 2 per day, no more than that. There are some seeds we definitely want to be getting in every day. So those good sources of fat, flax is my favorite, but hemp and chia are good too. Flax is the best. So grind up those flax seeds and include them in your smoothies or your oatmeal or what have you. Get that in every day. So there's some good fats we really want to include. Another one that was asked about was avocado. Avocado is actually really lovely. We don't want to go overboard with the avocado if we have some underlying issues, if we're trying to release excess weight. But avocado is glorious. It has beautiful micronutrients, really good fats, and it has high fiber enough that if we eat it as its whole food, it's not likely to stay on our bodies when it's not wanted, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit better in terms of those high fat foods if you're trying to release excess weight. But we don't want to go overboard, no more than a serving or 2 a day. Another question here, I have high blood pressure meds and take meds, but I want to get off of them. I eat plant-based diet, my blood pressure won't come down without the medication. What can I do better differently? That's an excellent question. So there can be a lot of reasons why this is happening. So one of the things that, we really need to remember is that 2 people on 100% plant-based diet can be eating very different things, right? So, and there are a lot of products out there calling themselves plant-based that are not part of a whole food plant-based diet. So one of the things we really want to do is we want to look at that plate. And I was trying to keep this short or else I would have included it, but the power plate. If you've never heard of it, look it up. The power plate is fantastic. So a quarter of our plate, dark leafy greens, a quarter of our plate, colorful non-starchy vegetables, a serving of plant-based protein like beans, peas, lentils, etc., and a serving of whole grains or starchy vegetables in their whole food form. If you're doing all of that, we want to make sure that we are watching our sodium intake. So even if we're not adding salt, there are lots of things that have salt in them that we really want to be cautious of. As a person that used to have stroke level blood pressure, this is one of the things that I'm really cognizant of. I still use low sodium soy sauce, but I'm careful about how much I use. You want to make sure that you're drinking enough water. You want to be able to flush out excesses. We want to make sure that we're moving our bodies, and we want to keep those fats low. The saturated fat, especially if you have any foods that contain cholesterol or trans fats, a lot of some processed foods, they've been swapping those out. Some processed foods will have it still, animals have it. We want to get those out as much as possible. So keep that saturated fat really, really low and boot as much of those other foods as entirely possible. Eat more foods in their whole form. What do I mean by that? So you can get a whole grain flour, which is, has all of its nutrients, has all of its fiber intact, but it has increased surface area, so it's more absorbable. And so we want to try and eat our grains closer to whole. We want to eat our beans closer to whole. We want to focus on those truly whole foods. There are ways to do that deliciously, I promise. What I would actually really recommend is when I have a situation like that, is that you have a chat with someone that knows what to watch out for in your specific situation, because everybody's situation is different. I hope that answered the question adequately. There's some things you can do, but I highly recommend you have a chat with somebody that can have a look at what you're doing and say, I see the culprit. There's Dr. Cox back again with us. Hi, Dr. Cox.
Sorry to be jumping in and out. It's the day-to-day lately of the crazy. I'm looking at my hair and I'm sorry, all the crazy with the masks and everything.
She's working hard today. Did you hear what I said? Is there anything you want to add?
Nope, I think it's great.
One thing I didn't say that's really important is, that if you do not have your blood pressure under control yet, it's really important to continue taking those medications because we don't want to blow out while you're trying to heal. So make sure that you're continuing to take your medications until your doc says it's okay. And everybody else out there, you've heard me say it before a million times, I'm sure, but please don't adjust your own medications. Some of them need to be stepped down. Some of them have interactions with other things you're taking. talk to your docs before you start making those adjustments.
Jay, what's the most common thing that you see as far as people that you work with? The most common thing that you see, kind of like words of caution when people are transitioning to plant-based, kind of maybe perhaps don't do it that way kind of thing, and what really works well for people?
So I think what you're getting at here is the strategy. How do we transition into this way of eating? And for the most part, most people need a gradual transition. Some of us are in crisis, like I was. Some of us are in crisis and we need to step up the pace a little bit. But the more that you gradually apply these principles, the more likely you are to sustain it. The other thing is one thing that a mistake I see all the time, and it's not a mistake. It's absolutely doable if you work really, really hard at it, but you're working too hard. So one of the things I highly recommend is that you take what you already eat and make it better. So in our house, we still eat tacos. We still eat pizza. We still have spaghetti. We, love the same kinds of foods, Caesar salad. We love the foods that we love and we eat those foods. We've just upgraded them. So we've just swapped out some of these harmful ingredients for better ones. They're still creamy and dense and filling and luscious and all the things we want out of our food. And sweet. I'm a sweets girl, so lots of good sweets with their fiber intact. So there's a way to do it without being miserable. And one of the beautiful things about plant-based eating is who likes to be hungry? That is not a fun place to be. And it's entirely unnecessary, especially if you're eating plant predominant foods. There are ways to do it where you feel full all the time, comfortably full, and you never feel like you're lacking. I see it all the time with people that come to me. What happens is they think they're about to get restricted. They think everything is about to get restricted. And what they actually find is their world has opened up with abundance, because we have somewhere between 70 and 100,000 different plants we can eat. So it goes from I eat these three things to 70,000 to 100,000 different varieties. It's a beautiful transition from a very small world to a very abundant world.
And the thing that I would add, I think I was fishing when I asked the question. The thing I would add to, I feel like we can't say it enough as far as the avoiding the plant-based processed foods. Because we see it, multiple times every day, people are really working hard to transition to more plant-based. But when you walk through the grocery store and everything has plant-based, 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 like plastered on the front of it, it's very enticing to pick that up. But the problem is it's a processed food, right? So trading an animal product for a processed food does not improve your health at all. We really need to switch to more of the true whole food, plant-based options. So
100%.
I cannot say it enough, because it's too often, and people work so hard and they're so excited to see their numbers, and then they're shocked when nothing has changed. And because, again, animal product to processed food, we're not going to see an improvement. So
absolutely. And that those labels on the outside of packaging, that's marketing. That's not truth. Go on the back and look at those ingredients.
And Jay, so we have a question. I think you probably just saw it. Do you have any recommendations for a good plant-based cookbook?
So many. I have a cookbook problem. So there are lots of beautiful ones out there. The ones I would highly recommend starting with, though, are the ones that are attached to really educated advocates out there. So Dr. Greger has a cookbook. Dr. Bulsiewicz is coming out with the cookbook. It's just about out. Dr. Esselstyn, I think Dr. Ornish has one too. Yes, there's lots of really good forks over knives. There are lots of really good cookbooks out there that are tied to people that really understand the science beneath it, because again, this whole plant-based thing can get a little loosey-goosey out there. So if you just go search for a plant-based recipe on the internet, there might be things included in there where we're like, oh no, right? So you want to be a little bit cautious. But the beautiful thing is finding that that style of eating that matches up with you. So before you start buying all of these books, go to the bookstore and start flipping through those pages and go, oh, yeah. You know, the more often you do that, buy that one. So you want to make sure that it lines up with the way that you like to eat. Again, we don't want to, you know, completely throw everything we've done away, you know, start completely from scratch again and learn how to cook whole new things. We just want to take what we already do and make it better. And those cookbooks can help with that.
And I actually would recommend Jay's site. I think that's a great, on Jay's site, there's a lot of things to help, you know, different cooking recipes, and you know it's from a good source. So it doesn't have the added oil. It doesn't have, I mean, there are plant-based recipes that call for plant-based sausage as part of the recipe, you know, so at least then you know you're starting with good ones. And there's a different variety on there, right? So some super simple recipes, some that are more in depth, to figure out what's going to work for your cooking style. I have to be honest, I don't use the cooking books because all of them have like 9 or 10 or more ingredients, and that's 5 or more than I can handle, you know, like it's got to be simple. And I find a lot of people that's the case. So sometimes I guess I'd also say Pinterest can be a good option. It is not the best resource, but if you know, like if you put in there oil-free, plant-based enchilada, you know, whatever it is, you know, you can get some good ones. If you're going to do that, make sure that you have pretty good sense of what you're looking for, what you want to avoid, so you don't accidentally get in, you know, coconut oil or other stuff that's not helpful.
And actually, one of the things I love to do is people send me recipes all the time to sort of go over. We also have some videos on PrevDoc to show how to upgrade recipes, so things to watch for. One of my favorite things to do, and I do have some recipes that, you know, I'll share with people that are a little bit more involved, but I'm on this same page with Dr. Cox. That is, the easier it is, the better. My one thing I say all the time is make the good decision the easy decision. So what does that mean? That means that canned beans are perfectly fine. Find ones with low or no salt, find ones BPA lining free, but those are whole foods. Make things as easy as possible for yourself. If you really don't like to cook, there are, you know, go to that section of the grocery where everything's already cut up for you. Trader Joe's has frozen grains already cooked, frozen lentils already cooked. Make it as easy on yourself as you possibly can. And then, you know, like I said, again, take the recipes you already have and start swapping things out. For example, you love spaghetti. Choose a whole grain noodle or a bean noodle. Swap out the ground meat for lentils. You know, find ways to try different ingredients in there and see what's really going to work for you.
Do children need to drink milk?
No. Okay, so really, milk does a body good. That's fully marketing. Milk absolutely is not part of you know, required nutrition for our littles, and certainly not for adults.
Breast milk is wonderful, but just to clarify, but
breast milk is absolutely fantastic, right, for infants and babies and toddlers. That's designed for them. That's really the best thing for your baby. But as we're weaned, and most of us in this country never get weaned, right? I wasn't weaned until I was 36. So we want to get off of the breast milk, and we certainly want to get off of the breast milk that doesn't come from humans. So one of the things that's really interesting that I like to point out as far as this protein thing goes, so human breast milk is perfectly designed for babies, right? Perfectly designed for their growth, their development, for them to turn into little humans, right? The protein in human breast milk is less than 1%. It's about 0.8 to 0.9%, less than 1%. In cow's milk, in bovine breast milk, it is about 3.5%. So it is 3 to 4 times the amount of protein. And so that kind of milk is not designed for humans. It's designed for cows. It's designed to make a baby cow gain several hundred pounds in its first few months. And so milk is not something that you really want to include, especially from animals. Now, there are some milks for as babies are transitioning away from formula or breast milk. There's some milks that you can choose. A fortified soy milk is actually a really good idea. It's pretty well closely matches in terms of protein and fat, right? Which is what we're trying to do, transitioning away. If you want to include plant milk after that stage, after a child has been weaned, as we grow into adulthood, there are lots of beautiful plant milks that you can have, but they're not necessary. They're really not necessary to nourish your body. And there are so many better sources of what they say we need the milk for. Calcium, all that kind of stuff. There's so many better sources, and they're all found in plants.
And it's good to note too, because unfortunately, a lot of even our pediatricians and other professionals still recommend milk. The good thing to note is the trends. So it takes a long time when information's out. It takes a long time for that information to then turn into a recommendation. So, for instance, we knew that smoking killed people. It was 25 years before they recommended that people stop smoking. 25 years. So we are in that process right now with the animal products, and like animal milks are part of that process. So a lot of pediatricians and other physicians are more up to date on, oh, wow, we really shouldn't be doing this. Just like some docs back when everyone smoked, they were like, wow, we really shouldn't be smoking. But they're kind of, unfortunately, we're still the minority, but growing fast in as far as, again, really doing a parallel to how we were with smoking. I think it really puts it in perspective is, wow, like this, unfortunately, there's solid scientific evidence, but it takes a really long time before the recommendations in place. So the fact that some of the recommendations have changed to say, okay, to have, you could have soy milk, or you could have, water, whatever the other options are, the fact that those are already getting into the recommendations is a really good sign that we're moving in the right direction, even though we're moving too slow. So.
Right. And something that Dr. Cox will absolutely back me up on is that a lot of our healthcare professionals that are not nutritionists don't have much in the way of nutrition education. Dr. Cox is lifestyle medicine board certified. So she's got, the goods that go behind her recommendations. And so just be careful too about where you're getting your recommendations as well. And if you have littles in your life and you're looking for some really good resources, I have plenty. Reach out to me. There's some really cool pediatricians out there that are disseminating amazing information for free, and really good stuff, and explaining everything and explaining why, and explaining, the helping with the pitfalls of trying to feed picky eaters and things like that. So lots of really good information out there if you know where to look. So just reach out, and we're always happy to share, because the reason we do this, the reason we spend this time, even though our schedules are nuts, the reason we do this is because it's that important. It's too important not to. So I want to share a couple of other things that we have going on, or do you want to do that, Dr. Cox?
No, please go right ahead, and then we'll get everyone going at 1 o'clock so you can enjoy your afternoon.
1 minute. So I'm just going to blah through it. So Dr. Cox already told you about PrevDoc. Get on there, lots of good info, lots of videos from previous things we've done, lots and lots of stuff on there. Dr. Cox does her Walk with the Doc, which is this Saturday, 9 a.m. at the Ventura Pier. So be there at 9 a.m. It's really cool. There is a doctor that leads and does a quick little talk, and then you get to walk by the beach. Absolutely fantastic. And walk with healthcare professionals so you can, pick their brains as you're walking, which is a lot of fun. And I also have a free weekly plant chat every Saturday, 11 a.m. It's online, and everybody is welcome, whether you're a plant-based vet or you're just a little plant curious. So check out those details, and feel free to reach out if we can help with anything. I am always open for quick questions and however I can help. So really, thank you for joining us today. This is an important topic, and as you can tell, I feel very strongly about it. And I hope you got something out of it. If you have any additional questions that you didn't want to ask in a group, reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Jay. I hope to see some of you all at Walk with the Doc. Saturday, the topic's going to be the same, heart health. And please don't be shy about people bring their personal questions, or, please, anything we can do to help. So have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.